Hello ladies and gentlemen, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today I'm going to be talking about a game that's currently being kickstarted. First of all, if you are watching this on November 11th, happy Veterans Day, and to all the veterans out there, thank you for your service. I had intended to get a video up today a little bit earlier. I'd hoped to launch a video around noon or midnight or somewhere around there, but some things got in the way and I didn't end up getting that up. It was going to be in honor of World War I, given that's where Veterans Day comes from, in honor of the armistice that started on November 11th of 1918. But instead what I'm looking at is a game, which I've already mentioned, currently on Kickstarter. It just recently hit 100% funding, but you can still, join the Kickstarter and add your, your money to the pile if this is something you want to support. Obviously the more money, the easier it is for these types of projects to get going, especially when you're looking at hiring more people. And let's face it, development always has cost overruns, so I'm sure they'd appreciate the additional funding. The game is War of Rights, and it's a Civil War multiplayer game. It's not going to be available for a while. I think they said the initial alpha build is still 6 months out. And while I'm not really advertising it so much as I've gotten several emails and comments from different fans or whatnot asking for me to talk about this, and I actually got an email a couple of weeks ago from the community director of this game asking if I would cover it. I'm not getting anything for this. It was just kind of a, hey, would you be interested in covering this? So figured I'd talk a little bit about it. So the game that you see on the screen here is called War of Rights. It's going to be a first-person, multiplayer-only simulation of the Maryland campaign in 1862. So basically, General Lee's invasion with the Army of Northern Virginia into Maryland took place in 1862. There were several actions which took place during the invasion. There was the attack on Harper's Ferry, where General Jackson, with his corps, ended up capturing over 12,000 Union prisoners in Harper's Ferry, Virginia. And then there were a couple of battles around the South Mountains, one at Fox's Gap, which took place. And then there was the main engagement of the campaign at the Battle of Antietam, where more Americans were killed than in any other battle in history in a single day. More than 20,000 casualties in just one day of action, thousands of killed, and that is the campaign this game looks to represent. Now, it's a little bit outside the wheelhouse, I think, of a lot of my viewers. It is a first-person shooter, but it's intriguing to say the least. So I'm just going to kind of go through the spiel. This is a pre-alpha version of the game that you're seeing on here. This is actually from their trailer on Kickstarter. But the game is purporting to focus on historical accuracy. They're attempting to gain a 1-to-1 ratio on several of these battlefields that I've just mentioned. They admitted they won't be able to have a 1-to-1 ratio. It'll be close, but it won't be able to be 1-to-1 for Antietam. Their maps are 2.5 miles by 2.5 miles at the most. It uses the Cry engine, which many of you may know is from the Crisis series of games, was kind of what made that gaming engine popular. So it's a very well-known engine in terms of its graphical capability, but I guess it has a 2.5 by 2.5 mile limit on its maps. It will take place on the Battle of Antietam as well as the other battles of the Maryland campaign. They will historically model areas like the Dunker Church, Burnside Bridge, and attempt to make this battlefield look as realistic as possible. And I will say, from the images you see on the screen here, it does look beautiful. As you have seen previously, they do attempt to model historical reloads, so sort of the musket loading and realistic ballistics, things like fouling, where you fire too many rounds and then eventually you start seeing misfires, or basically the barrel gets jammed and you've got to pour water down it to try and get the superheated liquid or superheated kind of powder that's kind of clogging up your barrel out. I don't know if there's a water pouring, but I mean that's a realistic thing that would happen with black powder weaponry. And it's also claiming to focus on team play. So it's not just a normal run-and-gun first-person shooter. The idea is that you have different ranks. So there's privates, there's lieutenants, there's captains, there's majors, all the way up to generals. And I'm not sure how it'll work, because they claim generals will kind of be in their own command tent and issuing orders from afar. Whereas, lieutenants will be kind of leading from the front, maybe with a pistol or a captain or a colonel. So it's interesting. I'm not quite sure how it'll play out. and I won't lie, I'm a little bit skeptical about how it'll work. I think trying to focus on team play is really interesting. Verdun certainly does it for the World War I battlefield, but World War I, with the type of weapons you have, you can still kind of run and gun on your own. Team play is certainly a benefit, but I'm not sure how that'll work out with linear warfare. If they're really going to try and go for realistic ballistics, authentic reloads, I'm not sure if that's in the wheelhouse of most first-person shooter fans. So we'll see how that works out. I'm a little bit skeptical. I think people are going to try and avoid fighting in lines. The idea of having a first-person shooter with slow reload times, authentic weaponry and ballistics, authentic reload times, and expecting people to line up in lines and kind of I'm really concerned how that'll play out. It feels a little bit like with the bigger maps they're trying to go for almost like a World War II online approach, where you've got these vast battlefields with maybe just a couple of servers and thousands of people in the actual battlefield. But I'm also concerned with a game like this that certainly has appeal, I think, to like reenactors or other people who maybe really want to recreate an actual battle. I do worry that you won't be able to get the critical mass of players necessary to make those big battles seem real and authentic. And again, I wonder how they're going to, keep people engaged in a much slower than usual pace game. They do have a couple of modes, so they got like a big battle mode where you fight in one big engagement, and then they've got kind of a skirmish mode where it's probably more fast-paced and just a limited spot on the battlefield. So again, we'll see how that all plays out. This is still on Kickstarter. If you want to check it out, I put the link in the description. But it's an interesting project. It's an appealing project. I'll probably back it personally, just because this is something I'd like to see, if only to be able to walk around these battlefields, which I think would be really cool for kind of like a historical and educational piece, because they've clearly put a lot of work into making the battlefields look and feel authentic. But yeah, color me skeptical but intrigued, and if you weren't aware of it, it's out there, and I just wanted to let you guys know about it because I thought some of you would probably be interested. But anyway, guys, that's all the time I have for you today. Again, thank you to all the veterans out there, and until next time, this is the Historical Gamer signing out.